Chapter 1 Reincarnation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The whisper of the wind echoed in the young man's ears as he gazed up at the starry sky. His gaze was clouded, like that of a man who had lost his soul and all hope of a good life. His name was Adam Harris, and he had short black hair and blue eyes. Adam's appearance could not be called ugly, but neither was he attractive. Adam's palms were calloused, and his hands were full of scars. Adam's body ached from overwork from the construction work, but his soul ached even more. And she left me. Adam sighed as he remembered the young and sweet face of the 15-year-old girl. His younger sister, Lily, left this world 5 hours ago. She was the only family member left alive. That's why Adam was grieving. His aching heart spewed blood as he recalled his happy moments. Burning guilt and loneliness filled his head. There was a sound. Adam opened the can of beer with a slight movement of his hand and sipped from it. Tears collected in his eyes. Thus passed an hour, 2, and 5 hours of the night. Adam closed his eyes as intense drowsiness pushed him into a deep sleep. A severe cold and sharp pain. That was the reason Adam woke up. He opened his sleepy eyes and vaguely saw 5 silhouettes as well as some shouting. Finally, Adam's eyes cleared, and he froze. Before him stood 5 beautiful-looking girls, each with green eyes, blonde hair, and pale skin. From the corner of his eye, Adam noticed that they had long, pointed ears. The sweet cherry scent from the girls made Adam slightly giddy, but then he noticed his condition. What the devil? He shouted and frowned. His hands were tied behind his back, and there he also felt intense pain. Turning around, Adam's eyes widened in disbelief. Black wings resembling bats. Had this been in normal times, Adam would have wondered if he had been wearing some kind of costume. However, he could feel the wings and could even move them. Just when he thought about flapping his wings, they moved a little, making Adam cringe. Demon, surrender. Quickly tell me why you appeared in our territory. Suddenly, Adam heard a scream and looked at the beautiful blonde girl. Adam didn't answer, and he couldn't. Adam himself also did not understand how he found himself in this place. Adam was sure he had fallen asleep on his balcony, but suddenly he was surrounded by beautiful ladies. And the girl who had stepped forward frowned. Suddenly, Adam felt a strong gust of wind and dampness on his cheek with a sharp pain. Due to severe pain, Adam inadvertently broke the shackles. He touched his cheek, and Adam saw that his palm was stained black with an unknown liquid. Is that blood? Adam thought and then shuddered. He looked at the girl in front of him and began to explain himself. I just happened to be here. I swear. However, the girl did not want to listen to him and only gave a command with her hand, to which the other girls in the room responded with spears, the tips of which went straight to Adam's face. Frightened and angry, Adam frowned heavily. Suddenly, he felt something crawling under his arm. This something reached his palm, and Adam mumbled reflexively. Field of darkness. Suddenly the light disappeared, and the room was plunged into darkness. Adam felt a rush of strength and forcefully broke the shackles, climbing out of his confinement. Even though it was dark, Adam could see freely, as if it were daytime. He found the door and ran out, ignoring the screams behind him. He glanced around and found his way into the forest. Half an hour passed. Adam was still running, sweat droplets appeared on his forehead, and his heart was beating fast. Sensing something wrong, Adam stopped. Are you done yet? Suddenly, Adam heard a voice behind him and turned to see a beautiful girl. She had pointed, long ears, long blonde hair, and eyes as green as emeralds. She wore a long white dress with white silk stockings peeking out from underneath. With her mature body and particular sexuality, the woman drew attention to herself. Her skin was pale, and her eyelashes were long. It seemed that with every step, nature around her came alive, and the singing of the birds greeted her. Surrounded by wild animals that dutifully bore her fruit, she looked like a nature goddess, making Adam's heart beat faster as if going back to adolescence, where every beautiful girl left a strong impression on him. Noel. 5 minutes later, however, Adam realized that the woman was no ordinary woman. Her green eyes were powerful, making Adam tremble with fear, and the small particles of light that surrounded her slender fingers were a great threat to him. Remembering the words of the girls, who were probably elves, Adam began to sweat. If he was not mistaken, reincarnation had taken place. And he turned into a demon. Sitting on his knees, Adam sighed softly as his hands were cuffed heavily and a collar was placed around his neck. He frowned at the burning sensation on his wrists and watched his flesh heat up, making disgusting noises. In front of him on the throne sat that woman from the forest. She was the queen of the elves, and her name was Amaria. With great beauty and grace, she ate grapes carelessly while Adam tried to come to his senses. 5 minutes later, when Amaria had eaten the last grape, she crossed her legs and smiled sweetly, as if to see her old friend. Adam didn't fall for her trick, however, and only snorted. "So your name is Adam? We have been visited by such a distant visitor. Are you Veronica's servant?" Amaria showed a subtle reaction of annoyance as she spoke the other woman's name. "No. I already said I don't remember how I ended up in this forest." Adam shook his head and sighed. "How so? Do you have amnesia?" Amaria gasped, then smiled. "All jokes aside, you have to tell the truth. I'm even willing to accept you as my subordinate." There were gasps and groans. Adam, too, was surprised, but he didn't believe her words. As he walked toward the palace, Adam felt many stares, most of them hateful. He was a long way from the good life. So Adam could only shrug his shoulders, and his eyes became gloomy, almost devoid of life. He said, "If you don't believe me, you can just kill me. I don't care." Adam had nothing to lose. He wasn't impressed by such a transition to another world, and given the recent memories that were starting to come to his mind. "I have nothing to lose." Adam looked up at the ceiling and closed his eyes. His posture was perfect for cutting his head off, but even after 5 minutes, he felt no pain. When he opened his eyes, he saw Amaria looking at him with surprise. Their eyes met, and Amaria smiled. "I guess you aren't a spy." She laughed and shook her head. "However, to be safe, I must put you in jail until the circumstances are clarified. I hope you understand." Adam rolled his eyes as two handsome elves took him under their arm and began to lead him through the corridors, eventually lowering him into the basement, where they locked him in a cage. Despite the gloomy place, it was comfortable, and Adam even saw a vase of fruit. "Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning. Chapter 2 Casanova. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adam lay on the bed and closed his eyes. He looked asleep, but in fact, he was awake. He was now in a white space and saw 6 statues before him. Each of the 6 statues was special and represented some kind of power. Warrior, swordsman, mage, necromancer, assassin, and also a man with long hair, whose eyes were black and resembled an abyss, and on his shoulder sat a crow while a snake coiled around his arm. Adam scratched the back of his head, puzzled, and blinked. Suddenly, a translucent screen appeared in front of him with a choice. Select class. Warrior, swordsman, mage, necromancer, assassin, Casanova. Adam ran his eyes over the names and froze in incomprehension when he saw the last class, Casanova. What is that? Adam cringed, and suddenly the text on the translucent screen, class. Casanova description. Casanova is a master of the art of seduction and beauty. He possesses the magic of his charm and the ability to attract the attention of others. Casanova is distinguished by his exquisite style, elegance, and casualness in everything he does. Specialization. 1. Seducer. Casanova can charm his opponents and seduce them, weakening their will and lowering their guard. 2. Beauty and refinement. Casanova pays special attention to his appearance and style. He can use magical effects to improve his appearance and charm, attracting the attention of others. 3. Social manipulator. Casanova masters the art of manipulating and influencing others. He can use his words and gestures to manipulate the emotions and decisions of others. Skills. 1. Art of seduction. Casanova can create magical attractions and use them to seduce his target. This may include hypnosis, charms, and seduction. 2. Mastery of communication. Casanova has exceptional communication skills. He can easily strike up a conversation, find common interests, and skillfully conduct a dialogue to influence his interlocutor. 3. Charming appearance. Casanova knows how to look flawless and attractive. He can change his appearance to arouse the admiration and attention of others. 4. Gentle touch. Casanova can make a woman feel pleasure with one touch. Features. 1. Increased charisma. Casanova has an innate charisma that allows him to attract attention and influence people in his environment. 2. Infectious charm. Casanova emits an aura of attraction that makes him attractive to others and contributes to his success in interacting with people. 3. First-class stamina. Casanova has first-class stamina and can show his full potential in bed. Casanova is a class in which the art of seduction becomes a powerful weapon. He can manipulate the feelings and decisions of others using his charm and attraction. As a Casanova, you will be able to go through life confidently, winning hearts and influencing events around you. What the hell? Adam laughed nervously and shook his head. Then he froze in shock when a statue of a man with black hair and the eyes of the night suddenly rose. The man smiled softly and bowed, looking incredibly elegant. Adam stopped talking and shook his head, trying to come to his senses. He thought he was dreaming, but the intense pain on his cheek from the blow he'd given himself to check it out showed otherwise. By the way, he does deserve the name Casanova. Adam frowned as he saw the man's fine appearance. Masculine, with a muscular and slender build. He had long hair down to his tailbone, and his whole demeanor was elegant and noble with a touch of charm. If Adam had been a woman, he definitely would have fallen in love with this living statue. However, he was a man and was now envious of Casanova's looks. If I had his looks, would I be walking around like a bachelor in my 40s? Adam shook his head sadly and patted the man's shoulder. Man, lend me your beauty, please. The man opened his eyes wide, as if surprised, and then laughed. Adam was surprised and then shocked, and the man with the deep and seductive voice said, "No problem." Suddenly, the man's body glowed, and Adam covered his eyes with his hands. A second later, he felt heat all over his body, and a sound appeared in his head. Casanova class selected. The next class can be selected after reaching level 100 of Casanova. What the devil? Shouted Adam and lost consciousness. Ugh! There was a low groaning sound in the cell. Adam stood up and rubbed his head, which was literally exploding with pain, and suddenly felt his hair grow longer. Adam frowned, held the bundle of hair close to his eyes, and saw that it reached down to his chin. He stood up abruptly and went to the mirror. There, he saw a handsome man in his 20s. His clothes were torn, and his body was muscular and beautiful as if God himself had designed it. Adam carefully inspected every corner and even opened his underpants. Holy sh*T. Adam's eyes lit up with pride. Squeak. With a creak, the door opened. Adam turned and saw two elves. One of them was a girl who was asking him why Adam had come to their forest. Suddenly he had an idea and, smiling, walked to the door. The girls looked up and suddenly blushed. Adam was half-naked, and his muscular body was conspicuous. "Get dressed, you idiot!" Suddenly she shouted with blush and threw a set of clothes, simple enough but comfortable, in his direction. Adam thanked the girl with a seductive smile, which made her blush. He began to change, ignoring the girls. Eek! Hearing the sweet cry, Adam grinned but didn't pay attention and pulled off his torn clothes. He was surprised to notice that he had grown taller. He used to be about 175 centimeters tall, but now he was as tall as 190. Very soon Adam stopped changing and turned to the two girls, whose faces were as red as a tomato. "How do I look?" he asked with a smile and secretly activated the art of seduction skill. When Adam woke up, he had full information in his head on how to use these skills. So now he could easily use them as if he were a professional. In the girl's eyes, Adam simply asked about his appearance, and then his face became even more handsome, and a pleasant smell permeated his nostrils, touching certain strings in their hearts. With a blush on their cheeks, they muttered, "Wonderful. Thank you very much." Adam walked right up to the girl, who was the leader, and lifted her chin. "What's your name, beautiful?" "Mary." She flinched and looked at Adam with a strange light in her eyes. "Mary, isn't it? What a beautiful name. It suits you, dear." Adam ran his hand through Mary's hair, making her shudder and lose strength in her legs. Then he turned to the other girl, who flinched and looked at him expectantly. Holding Mary, whose legs were weakened by the gentle touch skill, Adam smiled softly and took the girl's hand in his own, kissing the back of her hand. "And what's your name, honey?" "Claire, my name is Claire." Claire flinched and blushed, looking at Adam adoringly. The skill, mastery of communication, allows you to get a response and, in any case, make a good impression. Adam smiled softly and sat back in his chair, placing a slumped Mary in his lap. He took her by the chin with his left hand and grabbed her waist with his right hand, activating the gentle touch. Mary shuddered and suddenly screamed. "Aw!" Suddenly, Adam felt the wetness in his lap, but he didn't give it any thought. He smiled softly and brought his lips close to Mary's long ear. "My dear Mary, I'd like to know something, but I'm worried if I'm disturbing you." Adam's voice was soft and gentle, and in some places pathetic, as if he were a homeless man begging for alms from passers-by. "What? No, of course not. I'll answer all your questions." Mary flinched and jumped, but then lost her strength and fell onto Adam's chest with her face. She blushed, but she felt satisfied. Adam, too, was pleased and smiled. "Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you." Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Theta M inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning. Chapter 3 Hall of Elders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mostly, Adam asked about where they had found him as well as the situation at the castle. Naturally, Mary answered all the questions, being under his spell. Claire didn't stay away either. On the contrary, she was the most active and even revealed some secrets to Adam. In the end, Adam recognized the situation. Adam was found deep in the woods with minor bruises and a fever. After identifying him as a demon, Mary and her squad began to interrogate him. Upon learning of the demon's appearance, Amaria, Queen of the Elves, ordered that he be brought to the castle. Now there was a war going on between the elves and the humans. Because humans were enslaving beautiful elves, Amaria became very angry and started a war against Avalonia, the land of humans. In the end, Sylvana, the land of the nymphs, and Arcadia, the land of the fairies, on the side of Elfheim, the land of the elves, were also involved in this war. On the side of Avalonia were Stengard, the land of dwarves, Leoria, the land of beast men, and Ravenheim, the land of witches. Leoria and Ravenheim were only pursuing benefits, so they could not be considered full allies. However, these countries represented a strong base for Avalonia. As for countries like the Blood Empire, a country of vampires, Lagunaria, a country of sirens, the Empire of Chaos, a country of demons, and Lycantria, a country of werewolves, they did not show any reaction. It was as if there was no war at all. So Adam's appearance as a demon shocked the elves greatly. They thought that the Chaos Empire wanted to do something. I see. But about that, I'm not a spy. I'm just an ordinary demon who's been banished from the house. Adam shook heavily inside, changing the aura around him. Mary and Claire trembled and rushed to hug him and comfort him, saying that they were ready to represent Adam before the Queen. Adam paid no attention to the fact that the two girls were groping his chest and only hugged them. Girls, you are my miracle. I'm so happy. Adam smiled in relief and secretly activated the skill, mastery of communication. The girls blushed and giggled, hiding their red faces in Adam's chest. After 20 minutes, they finally let him go. It turns out that Mary and Claire are here to escort Adam to the Hall of Elders. There he will be judged. Don't worry, Adam. I promise to convince the Queen of your innocence, said Mary, intimately squeezing Adam's hands into her large chest. And I, too. Claire wasted no time either, and repeated Mary's actions. Adam saw sparks appear in the two girls' eyes, but he paid no attention. He smiled gently at the two girls and only enjoyed the softness in his hands. Mary and Claire both had mature bodies and temperaments, so Adam was thoroughly enjoying his time. Suddenly, however, the ring on his middle finger caught his eye. Did I put a green hat on someone's head? Adam felt a twinge of remorse, for this was not something he had planned. He sighed and felt a headache. He wasn't a scumbag who stole other people's wives after all. But it can't be helped. Her heart belongs to me completely. Adam mentally apologized and threw those thoughts away in the same second. On the way, they talked a lot, and the girls opened up to him more and more. Adam, too, opened up to them and spoke sincerely, which made the two beautiful women even more trustworthy. It got to the point where Mary told him about her fetish. Being an experienced woman, she revealed much about herself and, in the end, even hinted at a sequel. Adam only smiled and continued chatting with her as if nothing had happened. Flirting with the two women, Adam soon reached the so-called Hall of Elders. With a pleasant creak, the wooden door opened, revealing a round table at which mature women sat. There were about 10 of them, including Amaria. Mary brought him a chair, and Adam sat down, looking at the mature woman. He admired their beauty and sexuality, and the ladies responded with his beautiful and masculine appearance. Some even looked at him with predatory eyes. These women are dangerous. Adam thought, but his body smiled of its own accord at those ladies who were looking at him with predatory eyes as if to provoke them. And so it happened. Some of the women immediately began to wink at him, but Adam only smiled. I hope you were comfortable, Adam. Amaria smiled. We investigated and found out that you aren't a spy. But we can't just let you go. What do you mean, Your Majesty? Adam smiled softly and spoke with charm. I will do anything you want in exchange for your freedom. A gasp was heard, and some predatory glances intensified, but Adam paid no attention to this and only stared resolutely into Amaria's eyes. The Queen looked at him clearly and indifferently, as if she did not notice Adam's charms. She spoke. Very good. I'm glad you're cooperating with us. She crossed her slender white legs and smiled a sweet smile. Because of the war, it is impossible to transfer you to the Chaos Empire, so you must remain in the capital city of Elerin. I will give you 2 maids to choose from. Adam smiled softly and stood up, bowing elegantly. His bow made the muscles in his chest visible, so he drew attention to himself. Then what will my queen command? Asked Adam, changing his address. There will be time before orders, Amaria said, crossing her arms across her chest and emphasizing her 2 hilts. Before that, we'd like to get to know you as our new guest. Adam was surprised but smiled softly nonetheless. He began to introduce himself. Dear elders, my queen, my name is Adam Harris, and I am a demon of the Chaos Empire. I was kicked out of my family because of a conspiracy, and my unconscious body appeared into the forest. Adam smiled bitterly and bowed. I apologize for the disturbance. Even if by accident, I have trespassed and entered the sacred forest without the queen's permission. Therefore, I am ready to accept any orders and assist as the ladies wish. Adam's eyes sparkled, and he simultaneously activated mastery of communication, the art of seduction, and charming appearance, causing a massive boom of enchantment. Ah, what an unhappy fate. Adam, rest assured, we will take care of you as if you were our own. The head of the elders, Iliantra, exclaimed Iliantra, Caldara, Valina, Morel, Lily, Seraphina, Liana, Eloria, and Raviel. These were the names of the 9 elders. Iliantra, the elder of wisdom, has an elegant and graceful appearance. Her blonde hair falls in sleek waves to her shoulders, giving her an airy appearance. Iliantra's green eyes shine with wisdom, reflecting her deep knowledge. Her figure is perfectly balanced, with graceful curves and sexy shapes. Caldara, the elder of magic, is strikingly beautiful and mysterious. Her long blonde hair is braided into an intricate hairstyle adorned with magical amulets and crystals. Caldara's green eyes sparkle with magic, reflecting her inner fire. Her figure is slender and supple, with graceful movements, and her skin glows with a delicate golden glow. Valina, the elder of war, represents strength and grace. Her blonde hair falls in thick cascades down her back, giving her an outlandish appearance. Valina's green eyes are full of determination and strength. Her body looks strong and trim, with strong muscles that speak of her martial experience. She wields a sword with unsurpassed skill. Morel, the elder of love, has a beauty that is second to none and has divine facial features. Her blonde hair curls into thick curls, giving her a mysterious and seductive look. Morel's green eyes penetrate the heart, reflecting her passionate and strong nature. Her body is full of grace and sexiness, with flowing curves and seductive forms. Lily, nature's elder, has an appearance that blends in with her surroundings. Her blonde hair is gathered into a careless bundle, adorned with flowers and foliage. Lily's green eyes are full of wisdom and tenderness. Her body is slender and graceful, with the flexibility of a cat and incredible attraction. Seraphina, the elder of enchantments, radiates mystery and power. Her blonde hair descends in long cascades, creating an aura of mystery. Seraphina's green eyes glow with magical light, causing others to sink into illusions. Her body is perfectly proportioned, with graceful curves and seductive contours. Liana, the elder of tactics, embodies wisdom and majesty. Her blonde hair is braided into an intricate hairstyle, giving her a regal appearance. Liana's green eyes sparkle with knowledge and deep understanding. Her body epitomizes grace and elegance, with taut forms and graceful movements. Eloria, the elder of the moon, has a mysterious and alluring appearance. Her blonde hair frames her face, creating the image of a moon princess. Eloria's green eyes shimmer with a mysterious light, evoking inner trepidation. Her body radiates tenderness and elegance, with smooth movements and graceful lines. Raviel, the creature elder, embodies strength and determination. Her blonde hair frames her face, creating the image of an unstoppable warrior. Raviel's green eyes shine with fury and determination. Her body is strong and taut, with muscular contours and energetic movements. Chapter 4 Hall of Meditation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Adam watched silently as Mary and Claire tried to wrangle Adam's maid status for themselves. Amaria was surprised, too, but she didn't say no. So Adam had two maids. Accompanied by two charming women, Adam reached the large tree on which the house was built. His eyes sparkled like a child's, and he smiled involuntarily, charming the woman beside him. Adam was surprised to find that the elves' once hateful stares had diminished and were now looking at him with sympathy and affection, causing him to remain speechless. But, naturally, some still hated him. Most of these fans were male elves. However, Adam did not even pay attention to them. This reaction was expected, given the fact that even married women turned around and looked at him in frustration, causing a violent reaction from their husbands. Using the stairs, Adam climbed up the house, and his eyes sparkled brighter when he saw the calm wooden style. Everything was made of wood, and the furnishings in the house looked tranquil. Besides, the house was big, so it could easily accommodate 5 people. Adam turned to the two women and asked with a bright smile. "Are you sure? I'm not the nicest master." He laughed and sat down on the couch. "Of course I'm sure." She shouted at Mary and blushed. "Please, let me be your maid. I'm ready for anything and. Mary blushed and didn't finish her words, but Adam understood her immediately. "So am I, master, I am ready to serve you responsibly." Claire nodded and sat down next to Adam, snuggling up to him. Mary ran up and sat down on the other side of Adam, clasping his hands in her large chest. She smiled softly. What to do? I just can't say no to pretty women like that." Adam smiled and hugged the two women around the waist, and then his eyes sparkled. "But there is one request that you don't have to accept, of course." "Ready?" The two women shouted in one voice, making Adam smile. Then Adam took out a piece of elven paper and began to write on it with a goose pen, the tip of which had been previously soaked in ink. The two girls looked in and blushed. In an hour. Adam enjoyed looking at the two mature women who had changed into their maids' clothes. It was not the usual maid's uniform but, shall we say, the adult version. A miniskirt, deep cleavage, and white stockings on garters squeezed the two women's sexy and large thighs. Adam grinned and asked them to turn around, eventually giving himself up like the naked maid's dress, especially on mature women with lush bodies and white stockings. He felt as if he had gone to heaven. Calling the two women over, he seated them each on one leg and embraced them. His hand began to descend slowly and reach her buttocks. Adam squeezed them, causing a soft moan from the two women. "Ah!" He used the gentle touch, which made Mary and Claire feel intense pleasure and shudder. However, he did not proceed as he saw that the two women were not quite ready for this. He smiled and went to sleep on the bed with the two women in his arms. He put his arms around them and closed his eyes. In the white space, Adam looked around, but the statues were gone. Or rather, all the statues except Casanova were gone. The man turned back into a statue. Adam saw that they looked alike and was surprised. However, without giving him time to think, a translucent screen appeared in front of Adam. Name: Adam Harris. Race: Demon class. Casanova, level 1. Attribute: Darkness level. Inferior demon, F. Partners: Claire, Mary. Adam blinked and smiled bitterly. Though he didn't understand the level system in this world, just the word, inferior demon, made him feel like a grain of sand. Adam looked around and saw 3 words behind him. Royal Arena, Hall of Meditation, Skills. Adam became interested in Meditation Hall, and touched his finger. In an instant, his surroundings changed, and he was on a cloud high in the sky. There was silence and peace all around. Adam sat down on the cloud and crossed his legs. He closed his eyes and began to breathe in and out at intervals. Slowly, his mind cleared, and the gentle breeze only calmed him more. In an hour, Adam opened his eyes and saw a translucent screen in front of him. Strength increased, Casanova experience, level 1. January 25th, Adam exhaled and felt calm. His hair fluttered softly in the wind as his mind drifted back into meditation. Images of the people and his family from his past life appeared in his mind. Father, mother, grandparents, and sister. Nav om 5 hours passed. Adam opened his eyes, black as night, and they sparkled with all the colors of the rainbow. But it only lasted a second. Strength increased, Casanova experience, level 1. June 25th, 1 hour of meditation equals 1 unit of experience. Adam was happy with this way of increasing his level, so he closed his eyes and wanted to start meditating again, but a sharp pain made him shriek and grab his head as the screen in front of him appeared. Limit reached, 5 hours. Status analysis. Unstable. Automatic logout. Adam blinked and saw the wooden ceiling and the softness on his body. 2 mature women lay on top of him in a fair maid's dress. He smiled softly, and his naughty hands slid down, touching Mary's thick thighs. As he crumpled them, Adam wondered, no ring. Is it? He shook his head and decided to dismiss the thought. Although he did not purposely steal another man's wife, he would not return such a valuable person. Mary's heart is already completely in his grasp, so all he has to do is keep a good eye on her. Although Adam charmed her for profit, he was not a bad man to use and abandon. He stopped crumpling Mary's beautiful and thick thighs and began stroking the 2 women's hair. He paid no attention to the fact that the 2 naughty maids were long awake and only enjoyed their scent as he stroked their hair. The gentle chirping of birds echoed outside the window, making Adam feel peaceful. Involuntarily, a soft smile appeared on his face. This kind of life isn't bad. In Adam's past life, all that awaited him was work, loneliness, and death. And he certainly wouldn't have died of old age, given the conditions of his work. So a world where he can enjoy love and even immerse himself in lust is good in its way. He smiled and suddenly grabbed both women's asses, activating the gentle touch. Ah! There were 2 simultaneous moans, and suddenly Adam felt wetness on his fingers. Breathing heavily, Claire and Mary looked at him resentfully and suddenly froze. Adam raised an eyebrow and suddenly found himself under the 2 girls. They deftly removed his clothes. Adam blinked his eyes. 5 minutes later, 2 women were moaning in his house. Author's note: there will be no detailed scenes for now due to web novel limitations. My apologies. Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning. Chapter 5 Royal Arena. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Adam was in the home of a woman. He was walking around the capital because he was bored, but suddenly a group of 5 women called him to dinner. Seeing no ill intent in their eyes, Adam happily agreed. He sat at the table and chatted with 5 women. Soon one of them, a landlady named Eleonora Lunner, from her conversations, Adam learned that she was a widow. She had lost her husband in the skirmishes between humans and elves 5 years ago. Besides, it was obvious that every woman at that table had a story to tell. "Come on, Adam, help yourself," said Serena Zariva, an elf with soft features, light, lush hair, and delicate green eyes. "Good." Adam smiled softly and scooped up the soup with his spoon. Very tasty, Mistress Eleonora." I'm pleased to hear you say that," said a tall pixie with graceful features and thick, wavy hair named Eleonora. Then she blushed. And for you, I'm just Eleonora. Adam smiled softly and held out his hands, taking her dainty but slightly stiff palm. Of course, Eleonora. Your cooking is beautiful. Eleonora blushed and smiled happily. Adam smiled, too, feeling sympathy for this woman. She had worked hard day and night, just like he had in the past. She had to wear shabby clothes for lack of money, but she remained as bright as ever. Adam admired her temperament and beauty. "Boo, have you completely forgotten about us?" exclaimed an attractive and graceful pixie with sleek and very long hair named Mireia. "Leave them alone, Mireia. Our Eleanor has suffered for a long time, it is time for her to blossom." A refined and beautiful elf with wise green eyes smiled. Her name was Lyrina. "But I do envy." Said the graceful and seductive pixie, her blonde hair in a high ponytail. Her name was Ariana. Adam smiled softly and tried to be considerate of all the women. He looked out the window and saw that it was already dark. "Thank you for spending time with me, lovely ladies." Adam smiled softly and stood up. "It's getting late, so I should get going. I'll walk each of you home, of course." Adam carefully put the chair back in its place and suddenly felt the predatory eyes of the women on him. He looked up and saw that they were looking at him with a bright light in their eyes. "What on earth are you talking about, Adam? Don't you want to feed the poor widows who are going crazy with loneliness?" Mireia exclaimed, then approached Adam. She grabbed his chest and kissed him on the lips. Within seconds, her tongue and Adam's tongue were intertwined, making chuckling noises. Adam grabbed her buttocks and lifted her, pulling her against him. Mm. Mireia groaned, then stopped kissing. A thread of drool connected their mouths like a bridge, and then Mireia licked her lips and began to undress. Her actions were repeated by the other women in the room. Adam smiled and shook his head. Afterward, loud moans echoed from the room, and so it went on until the next morning. Adam returned home in the afternoon. He had to go through 5 rounds in the morning before the women agreed to let him go, having previously made him promise to meet again. Adam could only nod with a smile, kiss them all, and go home. Mary and Claire were waiting for him there. When they saw him, their eyes sparkled, and they threw their arms around him. "Missed your master." Adam grinned as the women began to sniff him. "Master, your maid was lonely." Claire smiled and began to wriggle into Adam's arms. She grabbed his cock and rubbed it, and she kissed Adam herself. 5 minutes later, Adam kissed Mary as well, but he didn't continue. He wanted to concentrate on his training now. Sitting down on the couch, holding 2 mature women in Frank maid's clothes under both of their arms, Adam closed his eyes and immersed himself in the system. Entering the meditation hall, Adam took a pose and began to meditate. 6 hours later, Adam stood up and pulled himself up. A screen appeared in front of him. Strength increased, Casanova experience, level 1. December 25, Adam hesitated, then teleported to the Royal Arena. Immediately, a screen appeared in front of him with a choice. Choose battle type, sex, sparring. Adam looked at the first option with a strange expression in his eyes. He even forgot how to speak. In the end, all of his emotions came out in a sigh. What the hell? Adam shook his head and chose, sparring. Another choice appeared before him. Choose your opponent. Amaria. S+, Valina S+, Iliantra. S, Caldara S. Countless names appeared before Adam. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly realized that these were the names of all the people Adam had ever encountered. The highest rank is Amaria's, and the lowest is that of a lady unknown to me. At the moment, Adam's rank is rated F, which is essentially the lowest rank. So he chose an unfamiliar elf named Masha, whose rank was F. Blinking, Adam was in the arena. When he looked around, all he saw was the vast sky and clouds. SSSS. There was a whistling sound, and Adam saw a whirlwind come down from 5 meters away, and 5 seconds later an elf woman appeared. She had the usual elf appearance of blonde hair and green eyes. She wasn't pretty, but she wasn't ugly, either. Adam got a good look at her and tried to remember the girl's name, but he couldn't. Then a sound in his head distracted him, and he saw a translucent screen in front of him. Royal Arena. A location where the user can take part with creatures he has previously seen. Even if dying in the arena, the user will be revived. Current opponent. Masha level. Lower path, 3 stars, F. Attribute. Wind. Adam read the information carefully and nodded. Although the Casanova class did not have strong fighting skills, Adam could only hope for the skills of an inferior demon. I can use 3 inferior demon spells. I need to divert her attention. Adam looked resolutely at his opponent, who was staring soullessly ahead. Adam concentrated, and a choice screen appeared before him. Do you want to start a battle? Yes, no, yes. Adam nodded, and an elf named Masha jumped back, and green particles appeared in her hands. Wind magic. Adam quickly concentrated and activated the Casanova skill, the art of seduction. Immediately, the aura around him changed, and Adam's black eyes lit up, causing Masha, who was reading the spell, to stop. Her cheeks reddened, and her breathing became labored, but the lifeless look in her eyes was still obvious. Adam ignored this and activated the inferior demon spell, the Field of Darkness. Immediately, the arena was trapped, and a dome appeared that surrounded Adam and Masha. Adam felt his strength increase, while Masha began to move more slowly. He smiled and quickly approached Masha, who was beginning to come to her senses. His black eyes sparkled with tenderness and love. Why don't you get some sleep? I'm worried about your health. Adam gently touched Masha's waist, activating the 2 spells, Mastery of Communication and Gentle Touch. Masha flinched, and her face turned completely red as if she had a fever. Adam smiled softly and caught the girl in his arms, hugging her gently. Exhaustion of life. A mist began to emerge from Adam's arms, which covered the body of the defenseless Masha. She was still in his arms, red-faced and smiling contentedly. Suddenly, Masha's face changed, and she began to twitch, and her delicate and beautiful skin began to crack, and in a minute, from a delicate elf, she turned into a desiccated corpse. Adam felt sick but managed to restrain himself. He pushed Masha's body away, which glowed and turned into particles as it touched the ground. User wins. The fight lasted 5 minutes, 10 seconds. Adam blinked and found himself at home. He noticed that Mary and Claire were beside him, watching him. He smiled seductively and grabbed the 2 beautiful women by the waist, pulling them against him. Adam felt the softness on his body and grinned. How about we relax? The 2 women blushed and nodded. Despite their embarrassment, Adam could see the lust and desire in their eyes. A few minutes later, Adam's house became active again. The squirrel, who had been sitting at the window to Adam's room, shook his head and ran away as if fleeing from distress. Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning. Chapter 6 Letter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The beautiful chirping of birds sounded outside Adam's window, awakening him from his sleep. Rubbing his eyes, Adam tried to sit up, but feeling resistance, he decided to give up. 2 pairs of large breasts of mature elves pressed against his body, but Adam showed little reaction. He closed his eyes, and different thoughts crossed his mind. He pondered his goals and asked himself countless questions. What should I do and what is my goal? My dream, what do I want to do, what can I do? An endless stream of questions and not a single firm answer. Adam couldn't let this go unnoticed, so he devoted all the capacity of his brain to it. An hour passed. Adam helplessly entered the space of the system and transported himself to the meditation room. As usual, he sat down and crossed his legs, then closed his eyes. With each passing minute, his mind went blank, and superfluous thoughts flew away. Adam felt content and warm as if he were in his mother's arms. 6 hours passed, and Adam reached the limit. He saw the familiar notification screen in front of him. Strength increased, Casanova experience, level 1. 18/25, Adam sighed and stood up, feeling disappointed. If it weren't for this restriction, I'd have reached level 2 by now. Adam shook his head and grinned bitterly. You need 7 more experiences, and you can go to the second level. Maybe there will be bonuses. Adam smiled and looked around. It was a dull space in front of him, but Adam felt that as he leveled up, he could achieve new things. Since he had nothing to do, Adam walked into the royal arena and, after some thought, chose Amaria as his sparring partner. Royal Arena. A location where the user can take part with creatures he has previously seen. Even if dying in the arena, the user will be revived. Current opponent. Amaria, Elf Queen, level. Supreme Path, 3 laws, S+, attribute. Nature, wind, water, fire, earth. Adam swallowed hard, looked at the clone Amaria had created, and felt a strong pressure. Narrowing his eyes, Adam prepared himself. As usual, a screen appeared in front of him. Do you want to start a battle? Yes, no. Adam did not immediately say yes and examined his opponent carefully. He didn't see any flaws. With a sigh, he muttered in an uncertain voice. Yes. The next second, he instantly activated the art of seduction and smiled softly. Shmyak. Adam blinked incomprehensibly, and all he could see was Amaria letting out a low sigh. Then his eyes went dim, and he lost consciousness. It's unclear how many minutes later. Adam woke up, and there was an undisguised shock in his beautiful black eyes. He mumbled to himself like a madman and then smiled bitterly. User lost. The fight lasted for 5 milliseconds. Adam's smile grew even more bitter when he saw the length of the fight. All it took for Amaria to wipe him out was a sigh. It looks like I shouldn't provoke her, or I'll die. He sighed and logged out. Adam and Mary were up by then, as it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Adam got up and changed his clothes. Suddenly, he saw a squirrel standing at his window with a stamped envelope in his hand. Adam opened the window and let the squirrel in. He looked around and found some nuts, placing them in front of the squirrel. Not bad food. Suddenly, the squirrel spoke. What the hell? Adam was surprised and felt strange. However, the squirrel did not answer him and only rushed to the window. And as if forgetting something, the squirrel turned and shook his head, saying, Young man, ask Her Majesty to put a sound barrier around your house, otherwise, it is impossible to sleep at night. When he had finished, the squirrel jumped onto a tree branch and disappeared. Adam stood still and felt embarrassed. He grinned. Talking squirrels looked cute and cool to me in cartoons, but in real life. Why is he talking like an old man? Adam shook his head and opened the envelope. Taking the letter out, Adam began to read, and his eyebrows rose higher and higher. Has she finally decided to give the order? Adam blinked and walked into the living room. Seeing 2 beautiful mature women in revealing maid costumes, Adam smiled. Mary and Claire, I'm going to the castle on some business. Keep an eye on the house, will you? He walked over to each of them and kissed them on the forehead. The women smiled and nodded. A few minutes later, a refreshed Adam left the house and headed toward the palace. Since it was a formal meeting, Adam had to change into formal clothes. Elves have a simple enough robe. A green robe, a green hat, and, would you believe it, green shoes. If the whole eco-kit can be accepted, but the green hat. It's kind of unnerving. Adam sighed and shook his head. Soon he saw a beautiful castle and approached the gate. There, the piercing eyes of two guards fell upon him. What is the purpose of your visit? Do you have an invitation? One of the guards asked rudely. His face was hidden behind his armor, so Adam could not see his face, but he felt very well the look of contempt and disgust. Without giving importance to the guard's rude tone, Adam spoke with a cold face. Her Majesty has invited me to a meeting to discuss further plans. Here is the seal. Adam pulled out an envelope with an open seal on it. The guards nodded, and the gate opened, allowing Adam to pass through it. As he passed through the gate, one of the guards suddenly snorted, and his eyes flashed with anger. A green laser came out of his hand and instantly caught up to Adam, hitting him in the back. Sensing something was wrong, Adam flinched, and unknowingly, his wings opened, blocking the laser. A searing pain spread across his wings, and the spot where the shot had been fired burned. Adam gritted his teeth and strode forward. He felt anger and a desire for revenge, but with his current strength, he could do nothing against the one who had struck him. Bastard, I'll find out where your house is and visit your wife, then you'll sing like a bird. At the same time at the gate, one of the guards turned to the elf, who fired a laser and removed his helmet. There were many scars on the elf's face, and he was even blind in his left eye. Aranis, what are you doing? Do you have any idea what will happen if Her Majesty finds out about this? The scarred elf asked in a cold voice. She wouldn't know. That son of a bitch has a temper. Proud and arrogant. The elf who shot the laser at Adam also took off his helmet. He was an elf with a dignified posture and a slender build. He had long blonde hair, neatly braided, and green eyes that burned with sadness. That's why you shouldn't think about it, Ray, said Aranis and grinned. You are on the higher path, who has overcome the 5 desires, A. He is also an inferior demon, F, who can be severely hurt by a single rash move. The elf named Ray sighed and shook his head. I understand that you don't like demons, but you have to restrain yourself. Ray, you don't understand. Although what you said about hating demons is true, I didn't hurt him for that reason. Aranis smiled coldly. That bastard stole the wife of one of my subordinates, so I was just messing with him a little. Let me guess, this subordinate is Eldarin. He doesn't stand out for anything except his temperament. Why do you care so much for him? Ray asked in surprise. You think I care about trash like him? Heh. Aranis shook his head and grinned. His face was horrified, and his eyes burned with lust. I originally accepted him into my squad, for Eldarin had promised to loan me his sexy wife, but because of that bastard, he didn't keep his promise. Aranis roared, and his aura became aggressive, but the elf named Ray did not react in any way and only grimaced. Shaking his head, Ray put on his helmet and warned him one last time. For your good, don't try to hurt him. You only put your position in jeopardy. Well, of course, I won't hurt him. Aranis shrugged nonchalantly, then smirked. But what does that have to do with me? Eldarin can manage without me. In that case, who am I to interfere in the affairs of 2 grown men? Aranis laughed and put on his helmet. His laughter was wicked and unpleasant, showing his nature. Many people suffered because of him, but he got away with it because his great-grandmother was one of the elders in the Hall of Elders. Meanwhile, Adam was escorted into the room, and he raised an eyebrow. Lunch before the death sentence. Chapter 7 Dinner. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adam looked around and saw a hall in front of him, in the middle of which was a large and long table. On this table, which was made of wood and decorated with leaves, were plates of food. The smell of the food alone could make Adam swallow his saliva. Although there were no meat dishes, Adam was already delighted by the quality and smell of the food. "Ah, you're here." Behind him, there was suddenly a voice, soft and gentle, full of femininity and kindness. When Adam turned his head, he saw Amaria, the elf queen. She smiled softly, and her green eyes sparkled with kindness. Adam, without wasting a second, bowed. "Good day, your majesty. I have come at your order." Adam said it clearly, remembering to activate his skill, mastery of communication. In normal times, Adam would not have let go of the chance to admire her beauty, but after the battle in the royal arena, Adam did not want to provoke her. "Come on, let's sit down." Amaria waved her hand and sat down at the table, inviting Adam. Adam sat down as well, but his place was a bit risky. Right next door to Amaria. For his own safety, Adam activated Casanova's skills. Mastery of communication, art of seduction, and charming appearance. Immediately, his aura changed, and Adam became seductive and even more handsome. Adam smiled softly and ignored the influx of fatigue. But even with all this effort, Amaria remained as smiley as ever. Adam could only sigh in his thoughts. It looks like it's going to take a major upgrade to seduce someone at her level. Adam sighed. The maids entered the room and began to feed Adam and Amaria. The first course was a soup of ingredients unknown to Adam. When Adam saw that the elf queen also began to eat, he took a spoon in his hands and began to eat the soup. Immediately after the first spoonful, Adam felt a warmth in his chest, and his vitality seemed to increase. The side effects were slight pain and dizziness, but Adam didn't pay much attention to them. His eyes sparkled brightly, and he began to eat his soup, disregarding Amaria and the maids. Of course, normally the maids would have scolded Adam for his lack of manners, but now Adam was in full armor, so even his barbaric method seemed overly elegant. That's what they call the privilege of being handsome. When Adam finished eating his soup, he leaned back in his chair and felt satisfied. Then he saw the smiling gaze of Amaria, who looked at him without blinking. Adam was embarrassed and coughed, to which Amaria laughed softly. "I'm glad you liked it." Amaria set the soup aside and ordered the second course to be brought. This soup is made from the sap of the elvish tree, which grows only in Elfheim. It is harmless, even to demons, and also increases vitality and therefore longevity. "This is truly astonishing, your majesty." Adam smiled admiringly, causing the servants to gasp. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity." The lifespan of an inferior demon is 150 years. And if you consider the increase in life force from this soup, Adam could easily live for 200 years. He was no more than 20 now, as far as a demon's body was concerned. So Adam didn't think much about increasing his lifespan. A few minutes later, a dish that was strange to Adam was served. It was leaves, apparently baked with honeycomb honey. They smelled pleasant, but Adam doubted whether it was safe to eat. However, seeing that Amaria began to eat, Adam also decided to try. After all, it's dinner with the elf queen, and even if he doesn't like it, Adam has to eat it all. Adam opened his eyes wide as he tasted this unusual dish. Initially, there was an incomprehensible aftertaste, more like mint, and then sweetness followed. It was moderately sweet, and with the special flavor of the leaves, it was very tasty. There was also a silver-colored liquid in the leaves that had a minty flavor. This liquid made Adam feel awake and active. The leaves of the moon rose are the main ingredient. These leaves grow only in mid-spring and can only be harvested during the full moon. They have miraculous properties and can make even the most tired person feel awake and active. Adam blinked and nodded. The elven forest was indeed full of stunning trees and plants that would shake the mind of an ordinary human. This is why many bandits and poachers dare to come to Elfheim because of their greed. Then the fish was brought to Adam. The meat was golden in color and seemed to glisten. Adam could even feel magical energy fluctuating around the fish and was stunned. A magical creature? Adam asked Amaria in amazement. That's right, you're right. This is the golden fish Arlen, which can only be found in the rivers of Elfheim. Catching it is very difficult and requires the help of 5 practitioners of the High Path who have overcome the 7 desires, A+. Adam nodded and began to eat. The fish literally melted on his tongue. The delicate texture and flavor of the fish were exquisite and beautiful, making Adam shudder with satisfaction. Then he saw Amaria just sitting there, smiling. Her plate was empty, which was wrong considering her status. Your Majesty, why aren't you eating? Adam was puzzled. Oh, that's. Unfortunately, golden fish Arlen is very hard to catch, and I can only eat it once every 3 months. Amaria smiled softly, shaking her head. You're my guest, so it's no problem for me to give up this portion. Adam nodded understandingly, and then a strange idea occurred to him. He looked at the fish and, hesitating, carefully cut it into one piece and put it on his fork. He picked up his fork nervously and held it out to Amaria, smiling. Then I will share it with your Majesty. There was silence. The gazes of all the maids, including Amaria, were focused on Adam. Most of the stares were stunned, full of disbelief and shock. Amaria blinked and looked charming. Her usual detached aura was gone, and she looked like an ordinary girl who had received a declaration of love. Amaria's eyes were wide open, and her whole face showed amazement. Even after 5 minutes, it was quiet. Adam became nervous and already regretted his actions. She was the queen, after all, and he was essentially a prisoner. I'm not going to get killed, am I? Adam hesitated, then froze. He saw Amaria lean over and eat a piece of fish. She stepped back and took a napkin, wiping her cherry lips and smiling. As expected, it was delicious. Now it was time for Adam to freeze in shock, and he was in prostration. His thoughts were on the words, I fed the queen. The maids also looked at Amaria in shock, and their thoughts were on the words. He fed the queen. However, amidst all the shock, no one noticed Amaria's slightly ruddy cheeks. 10 minutes later, the dishes were gone, and the sweets and tea were in their place. Adam still felt uncomfortable, but he overcame the feeling and returned to his normal expression. Your Majesty, I assume that this meal is not the only occasion for which you have summoned me? Asked Adam. Amaria smiled softly, but her smile was a little different than usual. She said, of course not. I recently received a request from one of the elders, Iliantra. Elder of Wisdom, Iliantra. Adam asked. That's right, she was interested in your potential and asked permission to train you as her apprentice. Amaria smiled softly. Go and talk to her, I'm sure she'll take good care of you. Adam smiled and nodded, though for some reason he felt a chill on his spine. I have a strange feeling. Friends, on my Discord server, I published illustrations of almost all characters. If you're interested, you can go to the server and see what's up. Invitation. HDBZNMSSKI. Chapter 8 Eldarin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Elf Queen's castle was stunning and simply enormous. The long corridors were like a maze, and if it hadn't been for the palace maid, Adam would soon have been lost. As he breathed in the air, Adam noticed that it was already nighttime. He licked his slightly dried lips and took a step forward, immersed in his thoughts. Talking to Amaria was a fun thing to do. She smiled, laughed, and told jokes. Amaria acted like a young girl, making Adam's heart flinch. Thinking of her beautiful face, Adam smiled. She is an unusual woman. Adam shook his head, and after a check from the guards, who had switched with those of the morning, Adam headed for his house. The journey home was peaceful. Under the moonlight, Adam enjoyed the cool breeze and felt calm. Adam put his hands behind his back and changed his path, walking into a blind spot. He turned and smiled, tapping his foot on the ground and shouting. Hell's grip. Suddenly, hands appeared out of the darkness and swirled and grabbed the air. Ugh! A shout was heard, and Adam saw 3 elves appear in the grip of the shadowy arms. Gritting their teeth, they used their magical power and forcefully freed themselves from their hands. How cute! Why don't you show up? Adam smiled, and his eyes sparkled. 3 flashes of green appeared, and Adam could see the faces of the 3 pursuers. One of them was thin and somewhat ugly. His eyes glittered with cunning, and an ugly aura emanated from him. The other was masculine, with unusual brown hair. He had expressive facial features and a sly look. But the one who looked like the leader had short, sleek blonde hair and green eyes. He looked noble and arrogant. Adam could sense the hatred coming from him. And for what reason do you follow me? Adam narrowed his eyes and released his magical energy. The leader-looking man gritted his teeth and roared. His scream was full of hatred and lust for revenge. You bastard! How dare you steal my wife? Because of your magic, she left me. Stole your wife. Who are we talking about? Adam frowned, and then it came to him. Ah, she. You mean my lovely maid, Mary. You're Eldarin, right? Adam's tone was one of disdain and disgust. He felt like he'd swallowed a bug when he remembered Mary's story. My ex-husband, Eldarin, before I saw you in prison, was suddenly made a knight in Sir Aranis's squad. At first, I was surprised that he had achieved such a high rank, but then he told me that. Mary's voice trembled with fear and resentment, her eyes reddened, and she clenched her teeth, saying in a trembling voice, that I should sleep with Aranis because he promised him that. Do you understand? For the sake of that status, he's asking his wife to sleep with a stranger. The memory made Adam shiver with anger, and his eyes turned cold as ice. Fragments of Mary crying in his arms appeared in his mind. She looked fragile and helpless. Since you're Eldarin, you're not getting out of here alive. Adam grinned coldly, and his coquettish demeanor changed. Demon God blessing. The magical power that was equal to that of an inferior demon suddenly surged upward, breaking through the ceiling that limited Adam to the F rank. F. Adam's power broke through to the peak level of the middle demon, making his aura dangerous and poisonous. A black magical force swirled around Adam as if it were a hurricane. In this hurricane, there were silent moans of pain, as if there were ghosts trapped inside that had lost their chance of reincarnation. Suddenly, the black storm narrowed and surrounded Adam's entire body. Eldarin and his 2 henchmen stood aside. They were in a state of shock, and Eldarin himself felt fear. What the hell? They told me he was just an inferior demon. He gulped and felt intense fear, but then he remembered that Adam was the one who stole his wife and screamed. K, attack him. 2 of Eldarin's subordinates woke up as if from a dream and concentrated magic power in their hands, reciting spells. A few seconds later, 2 blades of wind flew at Adam, spinning with terrifying speed and reaching him in 2 seconds. Suddenly they collided with a black storm, and there was a violent sound like the scraping of metal. Eldarin covered his ears and screamed in pain, and his 2 subordinates lost consciousness. The noise carried a strange power that affected the mind and, thereby, could stun the enemies. And considering that the 2 elves behind Eldarin were the usual weaklings at the lower path, 1-star, level, they were knocked out altogether. Damn it! Useless trash. He clenched his teeth and pulled his sword from its sheath attached to his belt. However, before he could even take a step, Eldarin suddenly froze. His body was shaking with fear, and his eyes were twitching. In front of him, he saw Adam, a demonic creature that had 5 wings that looked like the wings of a bat. It had a hybrid body, but it had sharp and long black horns in a spiral shape on its forehead. There was terrifying energy emanating from Adam's entire body, and his once charming black eyes turned into snake eyes. Long, sharp black claws appeared on Adam's hands, and on the tips of them was a green liquid, poison. Adam was about 190 centimeters tall before his transformation, but now he had grown to 3 meters. Adam's eyes lit up with irritation, and suddenly shadows emerged from his body, which in a split second enveloped an area a kilometer away, creating a kind of barrier. Field of darkness. N.N.O. Eldarin screamed and turned around, starting to run. Adam, however, didn't give him much of a chance. Adam roared softly, and suddenly there was a spark in his hand, which within a second turned into a large flaming arrow. And 10 seconds later, there were 10 arrows, all pointing in the direction of Eldarin. 10 arrows whistled toward Eldarin, and 2 of the 10 arrows separated in flight and pierced the unconscious bodies of 2 of Eldarin's subordinates. A. There was a shout, and Eldarin shuddered, a shiver running down his back, but he didn't stop, he just ran faster. However, it did not take long for Eldarin to run, and soon 8 fiery arrows caught up with him. 2 arrows pierced his right arm, 2 more pierced his left arm, 1 arrow pierced his right leg, and 1 pierced his left leg. Eldarin fell to the ground and screamed in pain, squealing like a pig. Finally, the last 2 arrows merged into one and increased in size. The heat became so unbearable that the plants around the arrow were burned. Boom! Ga-da-ah! Eldarin screamed shrilly as the last arrow struck him in the back of the head and pierced through his head. Adam stared blankly at this picture, then smiled coldly. His face was distorted by the transformation, but his familiar beauty remained in place. In a minute, there was nothing but the bodies of the 3 pursuers. Only ashes that were soon blown away by the wind. Adam turned off the transformation and immediately felt fatigued and in pain. His power immediately fell back, returning to the inferior demon at an early stage. He fell to the ground and breathed heavily, but there was a wide smile on his lips, shining with anger and satisfaction. Eldarin, though I'm not the best man myself, you're even worse than me. His eyes narrowed, and he put away the field of darkness. Soon Adam saw the vegetation of Eldarin and the beautiful skyline again. Adam smiled, feeling satisfied. Today's night was beautiful. Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning. Chapter 9 Seduced. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was morning. Eldarin, the capital of Elfheim, was lively again. Adam had spent the night in the same place where he had killed Eldarin and his 2 subordinates. Sighing, Adam stood up. The pain and fatigue of using a spell to transform and increase strength had side effects in the form of weakness and pain throughout the body. It was a forbidden technique that allowed you to increase your strength for a short period, thereby turning the tide of battle. Adam warmed up and started walking to his house. Last night he had to change his route to avoid hurting Mary and Claire, so it was a long way to go. But Adam didn't complain and strolled through the bustling capital. Although Elfheim was now under martial law, it did not affect the lives of the capital's elves. Though Adam occasionally heard of murders and takeovers of elven villages. He didn't think about it too much, though. It wasn't his problem, and Adam wasn't willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of elves he didn't know. So he chose the most effective option. To ignore. An hour later, Adam reached the threshold of his house and pushed open the door, stepping inside. Suddenly a seductive figure whistled across his chest and Adam blinked, looking at Mary in his arms. "You're back, master." Mary smiled softly and hugged him, resting her head on Adam's chest. Feeling his warmth and the hardness of his muscles on her chest, Mary blushed and smiled. She felt satisfied. "Did you miss me, honey?" Adam asked with a soft smile, stroking Mary's soft hair. Seeing her nod, Adam wrapped his arms around her, placing his arms behind the woman's back and resting his chin on her head. Mary felt that Adam was different today than usual. She said nothing, however, and only enjoyed his warm embrace, which acted as the most powerful sedative for her. "I'm back. Master, are you back too?" Claire entered the house with groceries in her hand and was surprised to see Adam. She looked at their embrace, and after placing the groceries on the nightstand, she too jumped into Adam's arms saying, "No fair, I want one too." Adam smiled and shook his head, opening his arms. As he embraced the two beautiful women, Adam felt calm and contentment, unlike anything he had felt before. It is unknown how much time passed, but the trio were still embracing. Adam was the first to wake up, as the sound of bells rang in his head and a translucent blue screen appeared in front of him. Mary's heart has changed, revealing itself to the user. Name: Mary. Race: Elf. Class: Mage. Attribute: Wind level: Middle path, 1 source. Status: Tempted, 100%. Adam blinked and suddenly 2 more screens appeared in front of him. Claire's heart has changed, revealing itself to the user. Name: Claire. Race: Elf. Class: Mage. Attribute: Water level: Lower path, 8 stars. Status: Tempted, 100%. Seduced. 100%. Adam thought and blinked in incomprehension. Soon another screen appeared and Adam carefully read the contents of the screen, and with each line, his eyebrows rose higher and higher. Fortunately, the girls were immersed in their world and could not notice the changes on his face. Thanks to the user's actions, the Casanova class received 3 experience points. Adam smiled softly and suddenly felt his strength increase by the smallest of margins. The girls seemed to sense something, too, so they looked up and saw Adam looking at them with a smile. "I'm in a good mood today. How about I make dinner?" The 2 girls were surprised and tried to talk Adam out of it, but he didn't listen and insisted on cooking his food. In the end, Mary and Claire gave in. Adam smirked and shook his head, seeing the frustrated woman. They always try to be first in everything, but today Adam was in a good mood and wanted to cook something. In a former life, Adam lived alone, and given his lack of money, he had few options for food. Most of his diet was potatoes or pasta. Since he can't find pasta, because supermarkets haven't opened in Elfheim yet, but as for potatoes, that's not a problem. It turns out that in this world, despite the new unusual fruits and vegetables, there are still similarities to Earth. Taking out the potatoes, Adam began to peel them and suddenly remembered his youth. Back when Adam's mother was alive, she often made him meals with potatoes. And she cooked very well, which often made Adam ask her to make something out of potatoes. Adam wanted to make fried potatoes because he hadn't eaten something like that in a long time. The preparation of fried potatoes was simple. First, the potatoes are peeled and then they are thrown into a container of water. Vegetable oil is poured into a frying pan, heating it. Then the peeled potatoes are cut into pieces and dropped into the frying pan, starting the frying process. Usually Mom also added green sweet peppers. Adam remembered and searched and found them. After slicing it into pieces, Adam poured water into a large container and then put the peeled potatoes and sliced bell peppers into it. Adam got out the vegetable oil and poured it into a frying pan, turning on a magical object similar to a gas stove beforehand. Soon the oil began to heat, and when it was hot enough, Adam began to cut the potatoes into pieces and put them in the skillet. When he was finished with the potatoes, Adam put the sliced pieces of sweet bell pepper on top. Every 20 minutes Adam stirred the potatoes so that they were fried on all sides. After another 20 minutes, the fried potatoes were ready. Adam carefully served the 2 women, though he didn't serve himself and sweet peppers. He just doesn't like them. The two girls looked at each other and began to eat. Soon their eyes lit up, making Adam feel joyful. Since he hadn't cooked this dish in a long time, he was afraid it would turn out badly. Adam smiled and sighed as he began to eat, too. As he ate, he talked to the two girls, and the atmosphere in the house was gentle and cozy. 2 hours later, Adam got ready to visit Iliantra, the elder of wisdom. Before he did so, however, he turned to Claire. "Claire, do you know Aranis?" Adam asked. "Aranis? I assume you mean one of the captains of the city guard." Claire nodded and tilted her head to her side. "If so, I do." "Great. I need all the information I can get on him, especially his wife." Adam's eyes flashed coldly. Mary and Claire looked at each other. Adam had already told them about yesterday without hiding anything. So they knew the whole situation. "Okay, that's not a problem." Claire smiled softly. Beove Adam smiled broadly and hugged the two girls, then kissed them on the forehead. He left the house and headed toward Iliantra's estate. "Friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning." Chapter 10 Iliantra. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The path to Elder Iliantra's estate lay across the capital, which forced Adam to speed himself up with magic. After half an hour, including the use of magic, Adam finally reached the manor. "Oh!" Adam gasped in shock and his eyes became full of admiration. A large estate appeared before him, which was surrounded by forests. Adam saw many beautiful animals that looked graceful and beautiful. As Adam stepped onto the land, he felt calm and peaceful. Looking around, Adam admired the arrangement of the land around the estate. After a few minutes, he reached the door and knocked. "Yes." The door opened and a little man flew out of it. Adam squinted and saw that it was a young girl with translucent wings. He was very surprised. I'm Adam Harris, here to visit Mistress Iliantra by order of Her Majesty." He nodded politely. "Ah, Adam, that charming beauty. Come in quick." The fairy smiled and whirled around him, giggling. A fairy entered the manor and Adam followed her. He was shocked to find that there were more than 100 fairies in the manor. Every one of them was busy doing something. 5 minutes later, Adam reached the backyard. Immediately a graceful and beautiful woman caught his eye. She wore a simple white summer dress, and several fairies were tying her braid with a cute giggle while Iliantra read a book. The whole atmosphere around Iliantra was full of calm. She smiled softly and interacted with the fairies, and looked very friendly. With her first-rate beauty, Iliantra surpassed even Amaria in temperament. "Iliantra, I have brought Adam," shouted the fairy who had accompanied Adam all the way. "Oh, thank you very much, Mistress Narina. You have been a great help to me." Iliantra smiled softly and bowed her head, then turned to Adam. "Hello, Adam. Come on over, don't be shy." Adam nodded and walked toward Iliantra. When he was in front of her, the roots of the plant suddenly came out of the ground and formed a chair. Adam was surprised but sat down nonetheless. "Our acquaintance was not in the most pleasant of circumstances, unfortunately." Iliantra made a slight movement with her wrist and the roots came out again, which formed a stool. Fairies descended from the sky carrying cups for tea and then poured tea. Adam smiled softly and thanked the fairies. "Thank you very much, beautiful ladies." "You're welcome." They answered in one voice and smiled. Adam found that the fairies were very active and smiling. They didn't seem to know how to cheat and always answered very honestly and innocently. On Adam's shoulder sat 2 fairies on each side. Iliantra smiled, as did a fairy named Narina. Adam, at the fairy's urging, drank the tea and felt the bitter taste and then the searing pungency. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he finished the tea nonetheless. The fairies shouted unhappily and pouted. Boring. Boring. G. Adam laughed and shook his head. As expected, these fairies also like to play tricks on people. Looks like they couldn't play a trick on you. Ilyantra laughed and shook her head. Well, let me explain first why I invited you here. The day I saw you in the Hall of Elders, my eyes suddenly lit up. Ilyantra stretched out her thin and delicate fingers, poking at Adam's chest, smiling. With my special magical eyes, I can see the potential of the beings in front of me. It's like a kind of mark. And depending on the color, I can determine the potential. White is the weakest potential, yellow is medium, red is high, and gold is very high. Ilyantra smiled softly, taking Adam's hand. Amaria is a very high potential, and so am I. But you. The color of your marks is purple. Purple. Is that a weak potential or a strong one? Puzzled Adam. Although he didn't understand the part about Ilyantra's eyes, he was curious about his potential. At first I was puzzled, too. And then, after searching in my family's library, I saw an old book. Ilyantra held out the book with the old cover to Adam. He took it in his hands and opened it. It's. Adam narrowed his eyes and read the text carefully. And with each paragraph, Adam became more and more surprised. When he raised his head, he met Ilyantra's gaze. Are you saying that I am the savior of Elfheim? It was written in the book that one day one who possesses the purple marks will appear. He, with his greatest talent, would grow stronger every day and become a ray of hope for Elfheim. Adam didn't have much faith in that, for his potential was not good. The class he had was not martial, so he could only go into politics. Had it not been for his inferior demon spells, Adam could hardly have survived the time. But I don't consider myself talented. Adam smiled bitterly and shook his head. Could this be some kind of mistake? Ilyantra smiled and waved. Suddenly a sphere fell on the table, and Adam grabbed it in time. Immediately upon touching it, the orb glowed with violet light. Adam raised an eyebrow and looked at Ilyantra, who smirked and leaned back in her chair. The prophecy says that when the sphere of truth glows purple, it means the greatest talent of all time will appear. Ilyantra smiled and handed him a stack of books, most of them about magic. Her eyes narrowed, sparkling with cunning. You will be mine for 2 months. So study hard, or else. Ilyantra licked her lips and leaned toward Adam, emphasizing her breasts. That I will punish you. The next day. Adam was in the library at Ilyantra's estate. He flipped through and memorized another book with irritation and hatred. The first thing Ilyantra did was to give him elvish textbooks. Adam thought it was for learning magic, so he enthusiastically agreed and began to learn. But with each passing day, Adam was given textbooks with ancient languages, which he studied and studied. And eventually, Adam was even forced to help decipher the ancient texts. At first, it was interesting, but then Adam began to dream about these ancient fragments. Now he finally began to study a book on magic. The book was about barriers, the beginner's version. Adam concentrated and began to learn the runes, which were the main part of the formation. With each page, the formations became so complex that Adam had to reread them 20 times just to remember the formation visually. However, despite the complexity, Adam fell in love with the formations and happily studied the book. 5 hours passed. Adam flipped to the last page and closed his eyes. He felt tired, but sensing the new knowledge in his mind, Adam smiled contentedly. Oh, Adam, are you finished yet? Suddenly a voice sounded in his ear and he saw Ilyantra smiling sweetly. How did I not notice her presence? Adam thought and then answered. Yes, Mistress Ilyantra. It was very fascinating. Ah. Are you telling me that you've already learned all the formations within this book? Ilyantra asked with a strange expression on her face. Adam nodded, and then, out of habit, activated the 3 basic skills of the Casanova class, smiling sweetly. He took Ilyantra by the wrist and smiled softly. Then. Should Mistress Ilyantra reward me? What, get your hands off me. Ilyantra suddenly screamed and blushed, much to Adam's surprise. Normally Ilyantra acted like a noble lady and always smiled, but now she was blushing like a young girl. Adam blinked in incomprehension and made himself even more attractive through skill. He stood up and took Ilyantra's hands again and muttered sadly. So Mistress Ilyantra doesn't want to reward me for my efforts. I am so sad. Ilyantra fell silent and closed her lips. She looked puzzled and confused, then clenched her teeth. I'll think about it. Ilyantra snorted and disappeared. Adam sighed and shook his head. He muttered. What a petty woman. Who's being petty? Tomorrow I'll add 10 more books for you, Theta friends, in connection with the contract, I'm opening up the goals through which you can get more chapters. Inspiration capsule equals +1 chapter, max 2/D, massage chair equals +2 chapter, luxury car equals +3 chapter, dragon equals +5 chapter. If you find an error, please tell the author. If you have plot suggestions or any desire, go to Discord, link in warning.